Today, the press conference between Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler has been canceled. Is this a regular occurrence? Is this something normal? Or is Conor on his way out of that fight? Also, what about Islam Makhachev breaking every MMA fan's heart over the weekend when he submitted Dustin Poirier in the fifth round of their title fight? And what about that snooze fest between Sean Strickland and Paulo Costa? All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy Matt. We getting ready to go over what transpired over the weekend, which was UFC 302, as well as the Conor McGregor canceled press conference. So let's start out at the tippy top as to what was probably about to go down within an hour or two. Conor McGregor was set to have a press conference with Michael Chandler today in Dublin, Ireland. So now, this was going to be a huge event. I know what you're thinking, it's just a press conference. But this was going to be a huge event, and there was a lot riding on this, okay? There was a lot riding on this in the sense that Conor's reputation amongst MMA fans and amongst MMA fans in Ireland, it's kind of damaged. You know what I'm saying? I'm not speaking anything that's not facts. It is. And this press conference, when you paint the scene of Conor being in Dublin against Michael Chandler's not really the most likable character. Really nice guy, nice guy, never met him. But still, he's a good dude, but something about his personality and how he interacts with people doesn't endear him to fans. And of course, Conor McGregor's behavior for like the last 5 years has in no way endeared him to any fans. With that being said, this press conference would have truly helped because the visual of this, everyone else in the rest of the world outside of Dublin or outside of Ireland watching this would see all droves and droves of fans. It's been reported, I believe they sold around 8,000 tickets to this event. You know what I'm saying? And so, with that being said, to be able to see all of these fans cheering for their guy, booing Michael Chandler, Conor coming with some one-liners and everything else in between, this would have been the right thing to endear him back at least into a portion of the fan base. A lot of us, we ain't never gonna like Conor, all right? It just is what it is. He ain't our cup of tea. But for a lot of people, he is. And this would have helped that visual. Now, at this point, all that's been reported by different news outlets and by Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour is that the press conference was canceled. The fight is still supposedly on. I don't necessarily think this has anything to do with the party footage of Conor chilling and hanging out last week and looking like, I don't know what he was doing with his wife up in the club. I don't necessarily think that this is related to that. And after seeing what Ryan Garcia did in boxing, it's going to be kind of hard to figure out when Conor is actually trolling everyone and trying to go down that same Ryan Garcia path versus when he's actually out twisted in the club doing his Conor McGregor things. You know what I'm saying? Black Forage in, couple of stouts, a little bit of, and he's good to go. So with that being said, it's going to be hard going into this fight, assuming this fight still happens, to know when Conor's going to kind of be trolling everyone and using that kind of Ryan Garcia tactic, because you have to believe Michael Chandler is always training. He's always in the gym. Yeah, he's definitely going to take this fight seriously, but there could be one could argue, I'm not making that argument, but one could argue there could be a slight mental edge gained by Conor if he really is training, if he really is training constantly, every day, trying to get back to form, and then he releases videos that look like he's out there twisted off something, chilling, partying with his wife, but he might not really be. You see what I'm saying? Now, with that being said, 9 times out of 10, we see what Conor's been doing for the last 5, 6, 7 years. So we know nine times out of 10, he's probably partying. When you talk about Conor McGregor partying, it's like talking about John Jones being in trouble. Generally, when John Jones gets in trouble, it's safe to say he guilty. He guilty until proven otherwise. So when you're talking about was Conor partying or was he not, it's safe to say he probably was. But with that being said, you don't really know because, on a lot of levels, Ryan Garcia trolled everyone and went out there and did his thing against Devin Haney, tainted drug tests or not. So with that being said, man, it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. As far as I'm aware, the press conference, they're labeling it as postponed. But, I mean, you would have to believe it's been canceled unless they're going to release another date this week. I'm saying that because, I mean, the fight is like 4 weeks away. And it's here in America, so in Las Vegas. So it's going to be hard to do that in like 2 weeks. And you got to get both men back over here to America, get them settled in and ready for the fight. Michael Chandler would be willing to do it because he's willing to jump through any hoops. But I'm not really too sure about Conor. So with that being said, at this point in time, the fight looks like it's still going to happen. I doubt that there will be the presser in Dublin, but of course there will be a press conference regardless here in America. So we'll see how that's shaped out. That's just the tippity top of the news going on right now. Now let's move over to the UFC's last pay-per-view that they offered to us last Saturday night, which was UFC 302, where, to be honest, was not the best card, not the best show whatsoever. Very little finishes, a lot of decisions, a lot of bad judge calls, a lot of bad scorecards. But the main event definitely did deliver with action and the emotion that we were all looking for. So let's start out with the main event, and then we're just going to fly through the other fights because they just weren't really that good. In the main event, Islam Makhachev, and this was the fight of the night and one performance of the night. Islam Makhachev goes out there and defeats Dustin Poirier in the 5th round via submission. Wow. What a fight, bro. What a fight. And when I say what a fight, I mean what a fight in the sense, golf clap. Golf clap it up for Dustin Poirier. Your boy, I got to get on my A game. I got to get the Dustin Poirier picture up here. You know what I'm talking about? Shout out to Dustin Poirier. I'm talking about this fight exceeded so many people's expectations of Dustin. We're all fans of Dustin. It's very hard not to like Dustin. And going into this fight, we all pretty much knew that Dustin didn't have hardly any chance of winning, and Islam Makhachev pretty much was going to go out there and dominate or finish him quickly. Not so fast. Not so fast. You shut your little mouth, because that's not what happened. Bro, Dustin Poirier went out there and shocked the world, in my opinion, because of the fight that he put on with Dustin, the emotion that he was showing. It's not a doubt that within Dustin's abilities, he did everything he could do to win that fight, just shy of just letting himself completely pass out, which he did the exact moment after he tapped. He passed out for a second and admitted it as much to Islam Makhachev after the fight. Dustin went out there. He caught Makhachev when he could. He didn't catch him with any shots that dropped him or anything like that, but he caught him when he could. Islam Makhachev used what is now becoming one of his trademark tie clinches, drawing Dustin in and hitting him in the body with knees. And then at one point, I believe it was in either the 3rd or 4th round, Dustin backed out and like he was being held in the tie clinch, and Dustin just went to work with body shots on Makhachev's body. Amazing. You know what I'm saying? Dustin went out there every time that he scrambled back to his feet from Makhachev, or he stopped a takedown attempt. Not every time, but a couple of times he flexed. He had the emotion. He was showing Islam Makhachev that I'm not going out without a fight. You could tell when this fight ended by the celebration by Makhachev's team that they know they barely got out of this one. Not to say that at any moment Dustin was going to finish Makhachev, but on a night like the night that Saturday was, with all the bad scorecards, all the bad judging, they knew if this went to the scorecards, there was a chance Dustin could win. You know, not saying Dustin did enough to win at the point that he gotten finished in the 5th round. But you saw the terrible judging the entire night. They might have went ahead and gave the fight to Dustin because we saw numerous questionable scorecards. So by the celebration of Makhachev's team, by the praise that Khabib heaped on top of Dustin and the moment that they shared, the multiple times that Makhachev praised Dustin, called him a legend. Bro, they knew that they barely made it out of there. Not necessarily by the fight, but by the fact it was going to go to the scorecards and they were going to be subject to terrible judging, which we saw the entire night. Bro, Dustin put on the best fight that he had the abilities at this age, at this point in his career, to put on against an opponent like Makhachev, who is a devastating wrestler, devastating top pressure, and generally smothers guys. You know, that first round, what we saw from Makhachev and Dustin is what we intended to see until the fight was over, roughly about the 2nd or 3rd round. We thought Makhachev was going to continue to take him down and smother him on the ground. That was not what we saw. It looked like Makhachev was trying to lace up something with the arm at the end of the first round. But, bro, shout out to Dustin Poirier. Great fight. Shout out to Islam Makhachev. He's continuing to look better on the feet. He seemed to be a half a step behind than the performances he had on the feet in the 2 Volkanovski fights. But afterwards, Makhachev did admit that he had staph. That he had, bro, the whole time everyone's calling him out for having staph during the fight week, and homie's like, chill. Can y'all chill? I'm still trying to walk that walk to the octagon. But the homie had staph the entire time. So you have to imagine he was a half a step behind stamina-wise and just output-wise in a way. Because what I noticed from his striking did seem to be really good, but it didn't quite seem to be as crisp or coming as rapidly as it was in the 2 Volkanovski fights. I know the second one didn't last as long, but still, outstanding fight by both of these men. Shout out to Islam Makhachev, who gutted it out with whatever sicknesses and injuries he went into the fight with. Shout out to Dustin, who had an outstanding showing for himself, shocked the world that he lasted that long. Everyone was behind him for the win, but it was not in the cards. Islam Makhachev is still your lightweight champion of the world, and from my vantage point, I feel like the only fight to really make from a skills perspective, from what should happen perspective, is him versus Sarukian. So wherever y'all going to sign that at, wherever y'all going to do that at, if that's going to be in Abu Dhabi or wherever at a later show, or if it's going to be in early 2025, that should be the next fight for 155 pounds. Now, I am a dude that likes to have fun. So I could be swayed with a fight against Max Holloway. That's not deserved by Max. It shouldn't happen. But if you're going to tip me with Max Holloway versus Islam Makhachev for a 155-pound championship, I'm down. You ain't got to say it to me twice. Nevertheless, shout out to Makhachev. He goes out there and gets the win. Now, in the co-main event, the number 1 ranked middleweight, Sean Strickland, goes out there and defeats number 7, Paulo Costa, in a 5-round fight. I'm not going to call it a war. This fight was pretty much a snooze fest. You know, Paulo Costa was on the back foot. Yeah, you heard me. Paulo Costa was on the back foot the entire fight. You know, the most devastating shots he was really hitting Sean Strickland with were calf kicks and body kicks. And if you listen to Joe Rogan, at any moment, Sean Strickland's leg was just going to fall apart. His whole calf was going to explode. His whole leg was going to spontaneously combust if you listen to Joe Rogan. What is the man's fascination with the calf kicks? Nevertheless, Sean Strickland goes out there, does, for the most part, his typical Sean Strickland fight style, but just never truly went for the kill until the end of the 5th round. Shout out to his coach, Eric Nixon, which really tried to get in his head, get up in him, you know what I'm saying, pause in between rounds, the 4th and the 5th round, to let him know, like, homie, I'm getting a little bit worried about this if it goes to the scorecards. You need to quit making this so close and go out here and put them hands, put them paws on this dude. And Sean Strickland tried to do it the last 10 seconds of the fight, 15 seconds, whatever. Nevertheless, a boring fight. Sean Strickland goes out there, gets the win. He calls for the winner of Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya. If those two end up fighting, regardless, he's calling for a title shot. Let's move on. Performance of the night went to another performance of the night bonus. Goes to Kevin Holland as he defeats Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Bro, I mean, what you want, man? You know, Kevin Holland went out there, cinched his arm up in a crazy arm bar. You know, Mikhail did not want to tap. At a point, you know, Joe Rogan is freaking out, talking about the arm is broken, the arm is broken, the arm is snapped. I mean, look, man, it's a touchy situation. I mean, regardless, you know, I think eventually Kevin Holland would have found that angle because there was still quite a bit of time left in the fight, in that first round, I should say. I feel like eventually he would have found the angle and dude would have had to tap, or the arm would have been so horribly mangled, Herb Dean would have had to stop the fight. But I definitely do see the argument that you got to let homie go out on his shield and let him be the one to tap or stop the fight, or completely let the arm get mangled to where it's just hanging there, and then maybe you go ahead and stop it. I mean, I will say that the arm was completely effed and it was completely numb, because not only was, as the fight continued, as the fight was over and they were interviewing Kevin Holland and everything, his arm was still continuing to dangle there. But if you look, when Herb Dean stops the fight, Mikhail tries to prop himself up on the arm, showing that, hey, no, I'm still in it. If you look, his wrist was like bent down like this on the octagon, on the floor of the octagon, and he's bracing himself up, but you could tell the arm was still stiff enough for him to brace up, but that arm was effed. Nevertheless, I see both sides of the argument. I see the side that Herb Dean should have went ahead and stopped it. I see the side that Mikhail should have been allowed to tap or go out on his shield. Nevertheless, Kevin Holland goes out there and gets the win. He's back in the win column. Next, we had a horrible, terrible fight. Worst fight of the night between Nico Price and Alex Morono. Nico Price goes out there and gets the win. Nobody really saw that coming. Alex Morono was gassed, by the end of the first round. Barely got any reserve back early in the second. By the end of the second, he was gassed. All through the third round, Morono had nothing left. And Nico Price did not have the ability, at his age, because he looked old out there. He did not have the ability to do anything to Morono to get him out of there when Morono had nothing left. He could barely lift his arms. So nevertheless, terrible fight. But I'm not shouting out Nico Price at that win. You should have been able to figure out a way to finish him, bro. He was a dead man walking. Nevertheless, Nico Price gets the win. Next one, we got Randy Brown goes out there and beats Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Shout out to Randy Brown. He goes out there, he wins by unanimous decision. Shout out to Dos Santos, who definitely put up an outstanding fight. Dropped Randy Brown at one point. That was very interesting to see. It was a great fight. There was a choke that was locked in the second round that I didn't know if Randy Brown, or at least the crank, it was a crank. I didn't know if he was going to be able to make it out of that jaw crank. I mean, homie's jaw had to be close to being snapped. But nevertheless, man, he made it out, and Randy Brown weathers the storm. Another major part of this fight was Randy Brown poked Dos Santos in the eye quite a few times during this fight. The referee, the first one, saw it, called it, gave Dos Santos no time to try to recover, sent him back out there and was like, all right, bro, you good. Hey, you good. Fighters get poked in the eye every day, B. You good. Go back out there. But nevertheless, man, sent him back out there. It did not work well for him. Randy Brown gets the win. Let's move on. We had Cesar Almeida stepping there with Roman Kopylov. Roman Kopylov gets the win. Another raggedy fight, you know what I'm saying, just being honest. First round was pretty good. Once Kopylov realized that he could take the man down and keep him down, that was about it. You know, Cesar had a few times that he caught Kopylov, but Kopylov just chose to ride him out for the fight. Definitely Kopylov could have done a lot more damage on the ground, but he didn't. I don't know what was up with that, but he needs to figure that out. You definitely could have done a lot more damage. Nevertheless, Kopylov gets the win. Jelton Almeida goes out there, finishes Alexander Romanov. Nothing new there. We saw that happening. Happened in round one. Happened via choke. It was early. Jelton Almeida back in the win column. Grant Dawson goes out there, gets a pretty much boring decision against Joe Selecki, rides him out, keeps him on the ground for 3 rounds. You know, what else do you want from that? Joe Selecki did fairly well at the beginning of the first round. After that, it was downhill. Probably one of the more back and forth fights of the night, extremely sloppy, was Mickey Gall versus Basel Hafez. I mean, extremely sloppy fights. Fight was bowling shoe ugly. You know what I'm talking about. Shout out to Jim Ross. But, bro, Mickey Gall goes out there and gets the win. Hafez. Basel Hafez goes out there and gets the win. Outstanding fight, though. Mickey Gall, man. Mickey Gall, he came to fight that night. Striking did look a little bit better. He landed a little bit more. It wasn't world class. It wasn't Anderson Silva striking. But still, great job to Mickey Gall. He gets back out there after a long layoff. And, almost beat Hafez. So, shout out to Mickey Gall. But Basel goes out there and gets the win. Eileen Perez stepped in there with Jocelyn Edwards. This had moments. Most of the time, it was Perez exposing the wrestling and the grappling or lack thereof of Jocelyn Edwards. Although Jocelyn Edwards did have a few reversals in the scrambles, she did pretty well. Good fight to look at, if you know what I mean. But nevertheless, man, Perez goes out there and gets the win. She keeps her win streak going, and we'll see where she goes from here. But not a bad showing from Jocelyn Edwards. Also, at the end of the fight, it was very funny. It looks like they shook hands shook hands, hugged. Maybe that's the end of the beef. But Jocelyn Edwards did not fall for the bait and was not willing to have a twerk off with Perez. So, shout out to both of those ladies. And the first fight of the night, Mitch Raposo goes out there against Andre Lima, and Andre Lima wins by split decision. So, not a lot there. Andre Lima basically just kept Raposo at bay. Kept him at bay with a lot of good body kicks, a lot of good teep kicks, and they're just Mitch didn't. I don't know what was up with Mitch, but he just could not close the distance and do anything against Lima. So, nevertheless, man, that was UFC 302. That's what happened with the Conor McGregor presser. We will see where everybody goes from here. Your boy will be right back with you. We got a lot of things to go over because the UFC is coming to my hometown. They coming to the Ville. They coming to Louisville, Kentucky this Saturday night at the KFC Yum Center. Yeah, that's right. I live in Kentucky, home of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and the name of our huge arena is the KFC Yum Center. I know. Get your jokes out. Nevertheless, we're going to be covering that card. So I appreciate all you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact. MMA, and I'll check you next time. Peace.